Good evening, friends. This is Santanam Ravichandran with you today in logistics management. On the first instant, I would like to thank the President and CEO of ISM-INDIA, Mr. Krishan Batra, expressing his desire to share my experiences in logistics management. Thank you, Mr. Batra, for giving me this chance. Listeners, in fact, I would say it's a Festival of Lights Bonanza from ISM India, as we have just left with 4 days to go for the Festival of Lights Deepavali. So listeners from ISM India and from S. Ravichandran, wish you all a very, very happy Deepavali. Now friends, today I am there with you for logistics management. Now, before starting the logistics management, you can just view my educational qualifications and professional certification. I did my BSc and MA from University of Delhi and the GDMM from Indian Institute of Materials Management, Bombay. MBA Supply Chain Management from Karnataka University and Spanish from School of Foreign Languages, Ministry of Defense, New Delhi, and also from Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, New Delhi. Towards the spiritual side, I was given the MA Yoga degree from Uttarakhand University. Now, as far as my professional certification is concerned, CPM Lifetime and CPSM from the prestigious ISM Arizona, USA, awarded the International Diploma in Supply Chain from ITC, Geneva, Switzerland. I am also a certified internal auditor for Food Safety Management System from DEC Norske Veritas, Norway. Now, as regards my experience, it has spanned over the last 3.5 decades, especially in the supply chain management field. I was invited as a regular speaker in supply chain management by IIT Roorkee, Shriram College of Commerce, University of Delhi, SRM University, Modinagar, and also from All India Institute of Management Association, New Delhi, and many other institutions in and around Delhi NCR. I was invited as a special observer by Gurukul Kangdi Vishwavidyalaya, Haridwar in their annual day celebrations. I presented a webinar in supply chain management at Sharda University. I have been in the sugar industry for the past 30-35 years, specifically looking after the entire spectrum of supply chain management. Now friends, today I am there with you to share my experiences, and let me start with the overview of logistics management. Now, the logistics I have divided into 3 categories: management, strategy, and system. Now, what is logistics in the present context? No, logistics is a part of supply chain management that oversees the planning, implementing, controlling, and execution of storage, effective forward, effective forward and flow of goods and services and related information between points in the supply chain management to meet the customer requirement. Now you have to basically look after into the supply chain management part where logistics is involved from the upstream to the downstream, right? Now, let us come to the strategy. It involves the warehousing where you store the goods, information system, and transportation that is aligned with the overall business operations. The strategy is very important as it involves the information transportation so that the product is transferred to the ultimate user at the minimal cost. Now, what is the system? The system is the planning and coordination of the physical movement aspects of firms' operations such that a flow of raw materials, parts and finished goods is achieved in a manner that minimizes the total cost. I mean, this is the most important part in logistics, that the total cost has to be minimized for the levels of service demand. I mean, obviously the customer will be receiving the material at his end at the minimal cost. I mean, that is what their objective, that is what is our objective also. So this is the part of the logistics management which I have enumerated here: management, strategy and system. Now let us go to the learning objectives. The key takeaways which I have taken for this webinar is as follows: evolution of distribution and logistics. Then we come to the objectives of logistics management. Then the most important thing, role of logistics in supply chain management. Then we go to the cost identification. We have the logistics subsystems. Then what are the factors affecting logistics, and of course the outsourcing. Now let's come to the meaning and definition of logistics. Now if I trace the logistics almost, say, since the dawn of the civilization, the man, the Purusha, is the creation by God. And what was the logistics which he had? 2 pairs of legs, right? I mean, that's how the logistic started from the dawn of the civilization. And also, one important thing I would like to share with you, of course, it's almost very primitive, but you know, in the Mahabharata war, when the entire battle, the food to the warriors, it came down from Madhya Pradesh, from Kerala and from Karnataka. Even then, the logistics were there. It was transported through chariots. So logistics is almost old, is almost very primitive since from the dawn of the civilization. Now, when you see from the present day modern context, logistics is being used in warfare, in transportation of armaments, in transportation of guns, in transportation of tanks, etc., etc. That's the scope of logistics in the modern world as far as the army is concerned. Normally, this word logistics is used by the army people for transferring the food, armaments, guns, etc., ammunitions to the war spot. Now, when you come to the business point of view, I mean, that is going to be the scope of discussion here. Logistics was basically derived from the Greek word logistikos and the Latin word logisticus. It's very clearly said, meaning the science of computing and calculating. Okay, now as I have already told you, in ancient times, it was used more in connection with the art of moving armies and supply of food and armaments to the war front. Now, as far as from the business point of view, what does the Council of Logistic Management says? Let us explore that. Logistics can be defined as the process of planning. Yes, you will have to plan. Plan is very important in logistics, which we will be discussing at length during the course of the webinar. Implementing and controlling of the efficient, cost-effective. Again, see, the cost-effective comes down. The minimum cost has to be there for the flow and storage of raw material. In-process inventory, that means after the raw material shall be taken to the production site, and logistics is involved in the in-process inventory, then and finally it is transferred to the finished goods and related information. And related information means the information technology comes into action from the point of origin to the point of consumption. Here, from the point of origin means from the raw material supplier to the point of consumption Consumption is basically, it could be in process, it could be in the middle of the manufacturing for the purpose of confirming customer requirements. And finally, the goods shall move out to the customers. Now, if you see during the 1950s and 1960s, how logistics was performed in the industry. In this period, distribution systems were unplanned and unformulated. Yes, it is absolutely true. It was in a very nascent stage. We didn't know what exactly logistics meant for those people who used to do business in the 50s and 60s. Okay. Now, somehow the materials were manufacturers, retailers retail, and in some way or the other, goods reached the shops. At the time, logistics did not have any important aspect as far as the business is concerned. That was during the period 50s and 60s. Now, let us go to the period from 60 to 70s. The concept of physical distribution, of course, yes, there has to be an improvement as we go, as we pass on years. The concept of physical distribution was developed with the gradual realization, the dark continent. The dark continent means it was the logistics. Now they thought it became a valid area of managerial involvement. Now, what do you mean by managerial involvement? Somehow the managers, they have to manage how the logistics, the transportation has to be carried out. That is the first thought. It came that logistics meant something and it added something to the cost of the production in the early 60s and 80s. Now, when you come to the year 1980, you can see fairly paid cost increases and clear definition of the true cost of distribution, how the logistics cost, how the distribution cost contributed to a significant increase in professionalism with distribution. It's very important to note. Now, the logistics gained fairly important during the course of business, and it was considered to be a part of the distribution, and it was very clearly defined a considerable cost has to be given to logistics with minimum amount of money so that the professionalism in distribution is met to the ultimate suppliers. This was during the year 1980. Now, during the late 1980s and the early 1980s, it was linked to very much advance in IT. The birth of information technology evolved. Organizations began to broaden their perspectives in terms of functions, and that could be integrated. During the year 1980, I'd just like to add here, supply chain management, the term was coined by one Mr. Keith Miller. He was working as a consultant in Booz and Hamilton, and he is the person who turned this name supply chain management. And after that, flurry of books and journals and magazines came, and slowly supply chain management started coming into the business, and interest was taken by the people what exactly a supply chain management means. During the 1990s, the process was developed even further to encompass not only the key function of the organization of their own boundaries, but logistics took a place, the supply chain management took the place, also the functions outside their organization that contributed to the provision of a product of a final customer. This is coined as, or this is defined as the supply chain management. I mean, it is not only restricted to the managerial function of the manufacturing organization, but it has to be passed on to the final customer. You have to help him out to get the final product. So it is basically a chain, and it is a management, and it is a supply. So hence, this term was coined as supply chain management. And I would like to add, listeners, during this period, the logistics portion got slightly important. I mean to say, Transport Corporation of India, they had a subsidiary alliance called Gati Service. I mean, if I am right, this is the period actually they started, and they informed And normally a goods which used to come from Bombay to Delhi, it used to take in those days around 5 to 6 days. Gati was the first to start this sort of a quick service, and they charged a premium for the freight, and they said within 3 days from Bombay to Delhi the material will reach. So Gati was one of the services which started giving this sort of a service, due contribution to logistics. Now the next slide which I am taking is the generic value chain. Now what do you mean by generic value chain? If you see the schematic diagram, you have the primary activities on the x-axis, and on the y-axis you have the support activities. You have the firm's infrastructure, then you have the human resources department, you have the technology department, and finally the procurement department. Now we have from the procurement side, we have the inbound logistics, where the materials come from the outside the boundary of the organization. Maybe it could be a spare part, it could be a raw material, it could be any other thing which is coming into the manufacturing operations. Then the next you come to the operation part, the manufacturing part. That means the raw material and the other supplies which is involved in the operations, they are being transferred to the operations department, and the manufacturing process takes place. Then once the manufacturing is over, the final product is transported or it is shifted to the store, to the godown, or to the warehouses, what we call as the outbound logistics. Now this outbound logistics also serves the purpose of marketing and sales. That means the outbound logistics will take the manufactured product as per the requirement of the marketing and sales department, and it will be transported to the industrial customer or the end user, depending upon the material manufactured. And after that we have the service activities. Once the material reaches the end user, the service is also to be given, maybe from the assembly point of view, maybe if there is any problem has come in the material, whether it is an industrial equipment, whether it is an FMCG product, the service has to be given. These are the generic value of a logistics management. Now we come to the next part. What are the objectives of logistics management? Then we have the first and the foremost is inventory reduction. This is the most important thing. Inventory reduction means stock. The minimum or the maximum stock you will have to maintain, that depends upon your sales personnel, your marketing professional, how the sales forecasting is being done. Then you come to the reliable and consistent delivery performance. The transportation, I mean to say, it has to be consistent and it has to be delivered in a proper time. I mean, there cannot be any deviation in that. If you are giving 3 days to reach a destination, then it has to be reach the destination in 3 days. That is, at the right place and at the right time it has to reach. Freight economy is very important. Freight economy means consolidation. You will have to consolidate the freight. Suppose if you have 10 items to be transported, okay, you have to consolidate it all the economy, you have to consolidate it all the equipments and make a minimum freight economy, so that at the minimum freight cost it is transported to the end user. Then when you do these transportation in process, the minimum product damages also comes into play. Minimum product damages means the packaging has to be done excellently, it has to be done very carefully. For fragile items, you have a separate carrier, and for other items, the carrier is quite different. So the minimum product damages, the stacking part, it has to be made very important when you stack the item in a truck, in a lorry, or in a container, so that the minimum damages takes place. In fact, I would say there should not be any damages at all. Then when you transport the item from one place to another, you should have a quick response. That is, quick response means What do you mean? It's information. Information technology plays a very, very important part in logistics management in the current scenario. So IT, information technology, without information technology in the modern world, especially globally, you just simply cannot survive. You should have an absolute super duper computer with you, and your network should be strong so that within a fraction of a second, you get exactly where your material is. Now, how does the logistics operate? This is a very important scene which you can quite depict from this slide what I have given. You have the logistics part. Logistics part is divided into, if you take the left hand side, from my side it's materials management, where the materials people are involved, manufacturing and supply service, the product is manufactured, and finally the suppliers. Basically, they are the raw material suppliers, sub-assemblies, manufacturing part, and packaging materials. Then from the suppliers, you go to the inbound logistics flow. You have the material flow to the work in process. Then you have the production, where the goods are manufactured. Now, if you come to the physical distribution side, the material are distributed, the customer service is there, the finished goods is there, then finished goods, it goes to the outbound logistics, then inventory in the field. What are the inventory which you have stored outside? You must be having a depot, you must be having your own warehouses. What are the inventory which you have stored there? Then you have the transit depot and intermediary. Now this is where this one important aspect where cross-docking comes into play, which I shall be discussing in the course of the webinar. And finally, the material is transported to the customer, where we have the other equipment manufacturer. It could be end users and it could be the government also. Now comes the main part of logistics in supply chain management. People get often confused. People say, what is logistics and what does it have a role in supply chain management? Quite often, many people say logistics and supply chain management, they are the same. No, they are not the same. They are interlinked together. Logistics means just simply transportation of material from one place to another. Supply chain means it is the transportation from the upstream to the downstream. That is right from the material being transported from the upstream. Upstream means from the raw material manufacturer. It comes to the organization. It comes to the production plant. It is stored there. From there, it is moved to the production side, your work in process side. When once the final product is manufactured, it is moved from there. It is stored in the stores, in the godown or in the warehouse, and from there it is transported to the distributors, to the wholesalers, to the retailers, and finally it reaches the end user or the end customer. This entire chain is a chain, and it has to be managed properly in such a way so that the end user, the customer, is not a sufferer. So that is why this term is coined as supply chain and manager. I beg your pardon, supply chain and management. Now the supply chain management, it fills the gap between supply and demand. As I've already explained to you, the demand depends what is the demand exactly from the supplier, and it used to fill the gap. The gap means there cannot be any interruption. Immediately, if there is a demand is quite high, the supply has to be quite fast. So there cannot be any delay in that. So that is why it fills the gaps between supply and demand. Now another important aspect in supply chain management is the mapping of logistics with the supply chain. Now, why do we map logistics with supply chain? What is the need? Yes, it's very important because after all, logistics means minimum cost has to be spent. I mean, whatever minimum cost is spent, that is better for the organization, so that the material reaches the end user at a proper given place at a proper time with this minimum cost. Now, in order to understand the implication of cost and value addition at different stages, it's very important. What are the costs involved? What are the value additions involved at different stages in the logistics management? Now, the movement of inventory across the supply chain management is facilitated through various logistics and information support. It's very true. You see, right from the beginning, the movement of raw material to the production department. Now, from the production department, let us say it goes to another production department, and from there, finally, it goes to the packing department, and then from there, it goes to the stores or godown or warehouses. Now, all these logistics are involved. The movement of inventory across the supply chain is facilitated through various logistics, yes, and information support. Information support is very important, because until if there is no information, the logistics portion will stand still. Suppose if the manufacturing department has manufactured, say, 100 bulbs, suppose where it has to be moved then. So the information support has to come from the next line. So information is very important for the movement of the logistics. Now, during this process, a skillful supply chain manager will have to identify the non-value added activities. There could be many things, many non-value added activities, depending upon organization to organization, depending upon production to production. Okay. For example, in the case of car manufacturer, there are n number of activities. We just simply cannot pinpoint it. Only the production manager, the supply managers who are involved in the, they must identify, and they shall be identifying, and they will remove the non-value added activities so that they don't become an hindrance to the production process, and they have to be moved forward for the next course of action. Now, to identify the non-value added activities, they have to be skillfully identified, which are adding to the cost, and they will have to be removed. So, you will have to identify, this comes by way of experience when you work in an organization. You have to identify the non-value activities which has to be minimized, and you have to stream the entire process so that the supply chain management takes in a smooth flow and reaches the end customer without any delay. Now, I have shown you the mapping of logistics with the supply chain management. You have the activities along the horizontal line and the vertical addition along the vertical line. You have the procurement. Then you go from procurement, it goes to manufacturing. Then from manufacturing, it is to distribution. And on the value addition, you have the raw materials inventory. As I told you, you have the processing, then the manufacturing, then the finished good. Then finished good goes to the field, branch, oblique stock. Then it is distributed, and finally it goes to the customer order. Now, the next most important part is the cost identification. How do you identify costs? Now, the logistics cost has been divided into three activities. You have the direct cost, which is fuel, the cost of the vehicle. They comes under direct cost. You have the indirect cost, the building, the structure. They are the indirect cost, and overheads. Overhead, basically, you have the the salary and all those things. They are basically the overheads are basically fixed costs, and you have the overheads. Now, they have to be identified, and a logistics cost has to be worked out based on these three items: direct cost, indirect cost, and the overhead costs. Then we have the most important part is logistic subsystem. Now, we have the subsystem of procurement. It is purchasing subsystem. We have the transportation system. We have the warehousing, inventory management, material handling, and order size. Now, procurement again is a very important part of the supply chain management. In fact, it starts from the purchasing side only. The logistics, whenever a purchase manager, he brings materials to the manufacturing unit, he has to consolidate the freight, he has to pay the minimum logistics cost so that the material is brought into the factory. That's a very important aspect. Transportation subsystem, the transporter has to be very reliable. I mean, you cannot have any hang-ups. If the transporter says that I will be transporting the material within 3 days, means it has to come within 3 days. You just simply cannot take it for 4th day or 5th day, otherwise the entire production will come to a standstill. Warehousing subsystem is very important. The moment when the final goods are manufactured, it has to be moved to the warehousing. Sufficient room should be there, sufficient space should be there so that the final product is stacked properly. Inventory has to be controlled there, because the moment if you have more the inventory, then the material which is coming from the manufacturing process will have difficulty in storage system. So inventory has to be maintained in a very judicious manner. We have the material handling system. Yes, you should have this modern gadgets, stacker, rolling system. We have the rollers, many modern gadgets. In fact, many modern equipments have come for stacking up to 20 feet, up to 30 feet. Now they have to be handled very cautiously, and they have to be handled in such a way so that there is no spillage, there is no drainage of any kind of material whatsoever, maybe in the solid form or maybe in the liquid form. Then you have the order size subsystem. The size of the order which you give to your suppliers, it should be in a size so that it comes in certain period of time and there is no any difficulty in stocking these items. These are basically the logical subsystems. Now, what are the factors affecting logistics? In the modern world, the factors which affect logistics are globalization. After the incoming of information technology, globalization has become very close. We have all this www.com. The logistics has become very competitive because of information technology. You have to really be on your watch. What is the best amount of freight? What is the cheapest amount of freight? And what is the best fleets which you can get for your organization? Then you have to focus on the supply chain management, which I have already informed how this has to be executed. Then we come to the outsourcing. We come to the outsourcing of non-core competency functional area. There could be many reasons. There could be many items which may not be adding to the development of the development in the production side. So they are basically termed as non-core competency, which can be removed or which can be outsourced to some other party, so that the employees in the factory, they can pay attention to much other productive things. Now, we come to the customer value delivery chain. We first have the inbound logistics, which is very important. Inbound logistics means material coming from outside to the manufacturing unit. It could be raw material, it could be spare parts, it could be any other item which is going into the production oblique manufacturing. Now, this inbound logistics has to be very methodical. It should have a time-bound planning, and including the inventory and the storage. You come to the process logistics. Now, process logistics means to move the item from the raw material go down or the spare parts goes down to the process. Now, again, it is basically an inbound function within the organization. You must be having a lot of small vehicles for transporting the raw material to the manufacturing process. This is called the process logistics, and this has to be maintained in such a way so that there is no hamper of production. This basically is also a part of supply chain. Then once the product is manufactured and it's ready to move out, you come for the outbound logistics. Now from the process logistics, you can call this as an outbound logistics. It has to be moved to the stores, it has to be moved to the godown, it has to move to the warehouse. Now once it is moved to the warehouse, then basically the final product has to be moved to the wholesaler, to the dealer, to the end customer or the consumer, for which the sales department, they will give you a fixed amount of planning, how the material has to be moved. So this is basically the outbound logistics. Then we come to the reverse logistics. Reverse logistics means, suppose if the materials are rejected after coming to the factory, now they have to be returned back. If it's a breakage, okay, then if it has to be returned back, maybe it's malfunctioning in the material which he has supplied, so they have to be again returned back to the manufacturer. This is a very important one. This is reverse logistics, and this has to be carried out very efficiently so that the malfunctioned item or the broken item is returned back and immediately the replacement is also received, so that there is no there is no delay in the production part. Now another important aspect which I have incurred during these long years is the bullwhip effect in logistics. Now what do you mean by bullwhip effect? I mean, just when you whip the bull, there is the whipping goes in a zigzag way, so that creates basically a distortion. That is why it is called a bullwhip. A distortion means where an extreme change in the supply position upstream. Upstream means from the raw material in a supply chain generated by a small change in demand downstream. Downstream means the retailers in the supply chain will create a bullwhip effect. Anything which is going smoothly, it will not affect. Suppose there is a sudden change, maybe the delay in the coming of the main raw material, somehow or the other, the final product in the downstream is not reaching the end customer, maybe due to any other reason, this creates a bullwhip effect. Now inventory can quickly move from being back order to being excess. Now sometimes it so happens the production, they may not, I beg your pardon, the sales department, they might have given one forecast to the production department, but it so happens sometimes they might not have orders. So that what happens, it comes in building of inventory. Sometimes it will so happen after giving a sales forecast, they may say that we want immediately another batch of material within 2 days, which the production department may not be ready for that. So this will create a bullwhip effect in the entire system. Now what are the causes? Why it should happen? Now this is basically caused by the derailed nature of communicating orders up the chain with the inherent transportation delays of moving product down the chain. See, as I told you, it could be anything. It could be a breakage in the manufacturing system. It could be a transportation delay. It could be because of factory lockout. It could be a transporter strike. Anything from the upstream to the downstream in the supply chain management will create a bullwhip effect. Now, how to curb this bullwhip effect? Now, this can be eliminated by synchronizing the supply chain. What do you mean by synchronizing? Synchronizing means the supply chain manager, he has to be a watchdog. Right from the top to the bottom, he has to be very well informed. He has to keep himself well informed what is happening in the market, and as per the what I mean to say, and as per the outside effects, he has to synchronize the supply chain in such a way so that all these shortcomings has to be eliminated, so that the bullwhip effect is not taking place in the organization. Yes, of course, it cannot be a foolproof system. There are always problems will come, but synchronization by the supply chain manager to a many extent can curtail this bullwhip effect. Now, what are the causes of bullwhip effect? As I already told you, it is because of demand forecast updating. There could be a change in forecast. If there is a sudden change in forecast, the causes of bullwhip effect will be there. Order batching. See, some people they have the order of batching weekly. Some people they do it month-wise, and some people they do within 15 days or fortnight-wise. So this order batching, if it changes, that will cause bullwhip effect. And again, if there is a price fluctuation in the market, again this could be one of the reasons. Because of price fluctuation, suppose if the sales people they want to increase the price, what they will do, they will not move the material from the warehouse. It will stop there. I mean, they won't arrange for the logistics. So whatever material which is coming from the manufacturing side, it will come to the warehouse, and this will create an excess inventory. So this could be another reason. Then rationing and shortage gaming. I mean, create an artificial rationing in the market, okay, and saying that today I will be giving you only 100 pieces of a material. Okay, now the demand is 150. So what will happen? He will give only 100 and he will store the excess inventory which is coming from the production by. But sometimes it may backfire also. What will happen if they don't get the material in the market? They will go to some other supplier. So whatever material which you are storing in the warehouse, that becomes excess shortage, that will become excess. And if you start doing rationing these items, and if you play a short game, this might affect you, and this might cause a bullwhip effect. Now the other most important part is the cross-docking. What do you mean by cross-docking? Now recently, you must have read in the papers almost about a week back, the Madhya Pradesh government, I mean it came in the front page of the Hindustan Times, Madhya Pradesh, as told by the Chief Minister, he said it acts as a hub for logistics. I mean, it drew my attention. Normally, nobody gives such importance to logistics in the management. But when I saw the paper, I mean, it was really fantastic. You know, Madhya Pradesh is in the middle of India. So material coming from the north to the south, okay, it comes there, and the Chief Minister has said within 12 hours it can go to any destination. And for making such a hub, what are the things which you require? You require a space, very huge space you require, which the government is providing. Then you require skilled and unskilled labor, which is also there. Then it is in the middle of the country. Yes, no doubt. It can go north, it can go south, it can go to east, it can go to west. Within 12 hours it can reach. So these are the important features of Madhya Pradesh, and this will give an effective way for the logistics, and at the same time it will be very good for the state also. I mean, it's really very good from them that they have created Madhya Pradesh. Of course, no doubt it was already a logistics hub, but with giving due recognition and importance, this will definitely have an impact on logistics. This is basically cross-docking. Madhya Pradesh is basically will go for cross-docking. Cross-docking means, let us say it is coming from Bangalore to Madhya Pradesh, then Madhya Pradesh, let us say it goes to Kanpur, okay, without any intermediate transfer. That is cross-docking. You cross and you dock it. So Madhya Pradesh is basically what you can say is a cross-docking yard. And this is a simple example which I have given. Now, what do you mean by cross-docking? The concept of packing products on the incoming shipment so that they can be easily sorted or at intermediate warehouses or for outgoing shipment based on final destination. Now, in cross-docking, sometimes you see you have an intermediate warehouse, but sometimes you don't have an intermediate warehouse also. It is done from the incoming truck. The goods are transported to another truck and it is sent to the destination within 24 hours, within 15 hours, within 10 hours. So there is no storage in the intermediate warehouse. This is quick cross-docking. This concept was started, as you all know, by Walmart. Now the items which are carried from the incoming vehicle docking point, as I told you, to the outgoing vehicle docking point without being stored in inventory at the warehouse. Now what are the advantages of cross-docking? Yes, cross-docking reduces inventory investment and storage space requirement. This is very important and it has become very popular in our country. Now, what are the trends in logistics management? What are the trends which you are going to have? From functions to process. You see, normally in an organization, logistics is a function. Okay, I have bought the truck. Okay, my job is over. Okay, now it is for the process fellow to say no. No, the process function has to be ignored, and it is a process. From one process to second process to third process, third to fourth process. I mean, it has to be aligned. Now the responsibility has to be taken. That is why it is from function to process. Competition between supply networks. Yes, there is, after the decentralization of the economy, you see, everywhere there is competition, even within the country and across the globe. So, competition between the supply networks, the supply chain manager has to choose, has to economize the freight, and he has to choose the excellent network so that there is no interruption in the transportation of the final product. Now, closer working relationship is very important. You will have to have a relationship with your customers, with your service provider, because everything is follow-up. If you have a very close working relationship, many of the problems can be easily sorted out. Very small problems are also even sorted out. Fewer channel members. Now, instead of employing 10 people in a logistics department, when the automation is there, you can have only very few channel members. With the improvement of internet, with the improvement of tracking and all those things, instead of, suppose if an organization is having 10 members in a logistics department, it can be curtailed to 4 or 5 so that they can be removed and put in some other department. Fewer channel members with automation will definitely increase the efficiency. Now, what do you mean by physical distribution? Physical distribution also in logistics is basically logistics. You have to move the product from the manufacturing process to the end user. Okay. Now, what are the factors which affect environment of the physical distribution is very important. What is the environment at that place? How it has to be distributed? Whether the trucks can go? Whether the logistical advantage is there? These are basically, they have to be converted. How is the environment is there? They have to be analyzed. Now, demand characteristic. What is the population at that place? What is the income demand variation? Whether the variations will be the same or the demand will be the same, or it will go. Sometimes there is one variation, or maybe the variations, it may increase, it may decrease. So this has to be properly studied. Even we have to see the population. The population where the demand is there, whether they will be taking, or if you just simply transport the material to the end users and you come to know there is no takers or that. So it has to be, that has to be very greatly analyzed. Now, what are the product characteristics? What is the value of the product? You have to see the perishability of the product also. For how long the product can withstand. Now, what are the trends in logistics management? It is from, sorry, I beg your pardon, this is the next slide. What is the importance of physical distribution? Now, it confers place and time utility of products. Time is very important. Place is also very important. It confers to the place and time utility of products where production location and market are distant. Yes, this is really a very challenge. Okay, when the production location is in a very far place and market is far distance, you have to synchronize between the two. It's very important. Physical distribution plays a very important part for the market which are very distant. This has to be studied, this has to be analyzed, and then it has to be transported. Helps build clientele. Now, yes, when you when you transfer such products, it is better to have a good clientele, because once the market reaches a distance levels in proper time, the clientele will obviously, he will again come to you for the same product. So clientele is very important. Then this is also a promising area of cost reduction. Maybe once you have developed the market, then you can definitely go in for a cost reduction. Maybe the freight can be consolidated during this time. And when more people are there, when the more takers are there at the distance product, freight consolidation will come into play. Now, what are the components of the functions of a physical distribution? The transportation management, let me not go into very detail, because as you all know, transportation could be done by air, it could be done by trucks, it could be done by ship, it could be done by ropeway, it could be done by water. You have different types of transportation management, and depending upon where your production management, production operations are carried out, how it has to be transported. Warehousing management, yes, very true. You should have a very huge, big warehouse depending upon the size of the organization. If it is small scale industry, the warehouse will be small. If it is a huge organization where the logistics, there is a daily involvement of logistics, daily involvement of transportation, the warehouse should be given due importance, and should have and you should construct a very big warehouse. Inventory is the most important part. You see, higher the inventory, lower the inventory, and it will all affect your logistics. Proper inventory should be maintained at the proper level. Packaging, yes, packaging, proper packaging, if not done, it will result in losses, it will result in other problems, and once again the product has to be sent to the manufacturing department, repacked, so it involves cost. So packaging is very important as far as logistics is concerned. Information system is very important. Without information system, no logistics can work. Your IT department, your information system, geographical positioning system, your computers, your tracking should be absolutely clear, so that you have a real-time access to this information. Now we come to logistics. We are almost reaching the end of the logistics. Outsourcing. Now, since you see, now the today's trend is outsourcing logistics. You don't have enough time. You don't want to employ more manpower to call a truck to load the item. You cannot involve your own factory people. So it is better you outsource these items. You give it to another party, so that he does all your work, so that your company people can be put in a they can be placed in some other productive process. Now, what are the benefits of outsourcing? As I have already told you, your own people can be kept in some other place for some productive work. The benefits of outsourcing: the outsourcer, he will take care of everything, from the loading, to the transportation, and from reaching to the end customer. Now, there are levels of outsourcing are there. It could be transactional, it could be tactical, and it could be strategic. Then you have the service contracts also. Now, we have almost reached the end of the logistics. Now, what are the outsourcing practices? I have just given it in very brief. What do you mean by 1PL? We have 1PL, 2PL, 3PL, 4PL, and 7PL. I mean, to cut it short, I have taken only 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. Now, 1PL refers to a firm or individual that has their own cargo freight and can transport goods from one point to another point. Right? No middlemen are involved. I mean, it's a direct transportation of material from the manufacturer to the end user. This is 1PL. What do you mean by 2PL? Now, they are asset-based carrier to transport goods between the manufacturer and the buyer. Now, the transporter comes into play. He will deploy the truck. He is basically a person bridging the gap between the manufacturer and the buyer. So this is 2PL, second party logistics, and he will transport the material from the manufacturer to the buyer. Now, what do you mean by 3PL? It is nothing but supply chain, right? Now, apart from the transportation, it also includes other activities: warehousing, terminal operations, custom brokerage, and many other activities. It is basically a supply chain. He will take care of everything. He will take care of the logistics. He will take care of warehousing in your factory, terminal operation, customs brokerage, and many other things. Inside transportation also, within the factory, he will look after. That is 3PL logistics. Now, there is another term called 4PL. To put in a very simple way, basically, he is an overseer of 3PL. That's it. He will look after the entire operations of the 3PL. Now, the definition of 7PL, what happens? It is a combination of just 3PL plus 4PL, that is equal to 7PL. The 7PL logistics is quite I mean, I think very familiar and it's quite very popular also. One single person will take care of your entire logistics, entire supply chain management. That's it, finished. You have to just simply manufacture the product and just forget it. Rest everything will be done by the 7PL logistics. I think I have almost come to the end of the logistics and supply chain management. To add a few more things, I would like to just mention for the logistics, the infrastructure in the country has to be very good. You should have good roads, that's the most important thing. You should have good trucks, that's another thing. The drivers who drive the transport, they should be well educated. If you have a good infrastructure, half of your logistics cost will come down. Now, at present, the logistics cost as a percentage, it is 14% of the GDP, which is very, very high. In fact, by the government has informed by 2022, they will be able to bring it down, say by 8 to 9%. Now, how this will happen? This will basically happen when the proper infrastructure is developed. So that's one important aspect. Then now, one more important thing what I would like to add, the coming of the private taxis, Uber, Ola. What do you mean by that? They are also basically logisticians, outsourcing. See, if I have a car and if my recurring cost is very high, of course, they are very popular in the metropolitan cities, then why should I use a car? I will outsource. I will outsource the private taxis. I will outsource Uber. I will outsource Ola. So that if I calculate the running cost of my car with the amount which I am paying to the private taxis, it is much, much less. Yes, definitely, because you don't have any maintenance cost. And they are quite cheap also. So they are giving a lot of services. So in many metropolitan cities, many of the people, they don't use their own car. They are using just only the private taxis, which is another logistics, which is another outsourcing. So in this way also, logistics can improve and you can consolidate your freight even in the taxi, Uber also. 4 people pulling together and going to a workplace, yes, it will cut down your logistics cost.